Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of the MNCAA That Gopher Hockey Puckcast edition. I believe it's episode 124. Props to everyone who's stuck with us through quite a few episodes, not just MNCAA, but Gophers vertical specific. I feel like we say that every week, but thank you for sticking with us and thank you for listening again this week or watching because we are live, or not live. We're going to be on YouTube, recorded. So if you want to listen slash watch there as well, be sure to subscribe to the Sota Pod on YouTube. Very, very easy to find, very populated channel with everything else that Sota Pod does. I am Drew Cove, joined here as always, by Nate Wells, our New York correspondent. No, but sometimes New York correspondent. A lot of times to commentate on all things sports outside of Minnesota as well, just to make sure that the emotions in flyover country aren't just internal, or if they actually are, pretty internalized here. But besides the point, the Gophers, that's the team we're here to talk to you about today. The Gophers men's hockey team played St. Thomas this weekend, and Nate, they got a pretty good weekend out of it. 7-1 and 6-2 finals. Gophers absolutely destroyed a St. Thomas team that last year made it look really, really competitive, and everybody's really high on the St. Thomas Tommies again this year. But the Gophers absolutely destroyed them over the weekend in two pretty decisive games.
Yeah, Drew, we got off the episode last week, and we were asking ourselves, like, are we too positive about this Gopher team? Like, I know, look, it's 2 wins against Minnesota Duluth. That's up in Duluth. Not an easy thing to do. Rolling, scoring over 5 goals a game. Like, this isn't going to last. Well, we'll have a week that we get back a little bit to reality. Well, we're still waiting on that week because against a St. Thomas team that I don't remember, I think the coaches picked to win the league in the CCHA. It's 13 goals, so it's 13-3 aggregate for the two games. Crushing Minneapolis, crushing it in St. Paul, just the Twin Cities with a pair of twin wins for the Gophers. And this team is looking to exit October with a 5-1 record and just looking like they are really picking up for where they were towards the end of last season with as far as things were going.
Yeah, Nate, let's just jump into the games here and start with Friday night. A lot of Gophers fans, both at the arena and watching at home on TV. If you watch just the first 10 minutes of Friday's game on over the weekend, you might have been a little scared at both results if you didn't check until end of the weekend or early this week, because it wasn't a stellar start to the game for the Gophers on Friday. They were still finding their legs, and actually St. Thomas scored first. So it was kind of a bit of a letdown. It kind of just was a little bit of confusion, kind of like, all right, what's happening here? Are they gonna lock in? And boy, did they lock in. They really got it together, especially the defense. But I mean, the Gophers really just kind of realized they were back in a game after the first 10 minutes. Just took them a little bit to get warmed up into it. Nathan Airy playing in net that first game. I think he looked really good on the shots that he did face. I think St. Thomas did have a tough time getting a lot of shots on him, and the Gophers defense certainly did not. They certainly had no small part in that fact as well. But overall, the Gophers just turned it on offensively. The line that is yet to be named played really well, and it turned into be just quite the onslaught of goals, and the fans got Culver's pretty quick. That's all I can say.
Yeah, we mentioned last week how Minnesota's strengths through the first 4 games had been just having a strong opening 10 minutes, piling shots, controlling possession, and that wasn't the case at either of the games this weekend. But on both of them, you see Minnesota go down 1-0. It's a time where on Friday they trailed for the first time all season, and it took less than 5 minutes to get the tying goal. And at no point did you feel like that, like, hey, this is a 1-0 game. This is insurmountable. We've seen Minnesota teams where the way that they're going to win is you're going to hold the lead. You're going to be able to control possession. It's really hard to play from behind, and we got our first taste of how the Gophers are going to respond to a little bit of adversity and trailing and he passed with flying colors. Where it's scoring early, scoring quickly, and just taking over after St. Thomas gets on the board first. You mentioned defensive scoring, which is certainly something that the Gophers missed all last season. They had 9 goals total. The exit the first 6 games with 8. And granted, both of them, all 8 are from Ryan Chesley and Sam Renzel, who both already have career highs in goals. Each have 4. But I mean, if you're getting the offense from the blue line, you're getting offense throughout the lineup. You got the Kurth, Clark, Wood line that we got some good suggestions last week. I still like to see maybe get a few more before kind of trying to come up with something semi like unofficial, but you're getting those lines. And I mean, there's even like a couple of just players who they may not fully got into the score sheet that just kind of stood out.
Yeah. And I know he is on the line, but 0 points in Friday's game was Jimmy Clark. And I thought he looked electric on just about every play. He was creating things. He was being very aggressive. He was very speedy. Just things weren't coming by accident to that line, to a lot of those other guys on the ice at the time. And while he didn't get a goal or an assist on Friday's game, I think Jimmy Clark is he has a path towards most improved player, I think, on this Gophers team. And I don't even think he wasn't like bottom of the barrel last year. I think it's just so impressive that he turned a surprise season in college hockey to, as a sophomore, already looking like almost like an accelerated version of some of the guys that are finally the Connor Kurse, the Brody Lambs, as we'll get to Brody Lamb a little later. But I think he played outstanding, and especially Jimmy Snuggerud too. I think he was the absolute heart and soul of that team on Friday. Is that he got knocked down so many times, and like he just got bullied. He bullied his way to things, and it looked like he set the example for the rest of the team to say, you know what, if St. Thomas has the puck, like you don't have to just let them have the puck. Like go get it. Like go be a pest. And he did that so many times and created so many different chances that some led to goals, some didn't. But if that's what you can do if that's what one of your what is it, 4 guys with the C or 3 guys with the C and 3 with the A? There's 6 total.
It's 4. I think it's 4-2.
4-2. Yep. So being one of the guys with the C on his chest, it's important that a guy, and especially the guy that's kind of been the heir apparent since Matthew Nyes and Logan Cooley left, it's important for a guy who is known for his flashy offensive side and wicked shot to also do all those right things that make the team so much better. And seeing that out of Snuggerud this early in the season, especially against a team that, you know what, especially seeing the way St. Thomas played eventually, they might not have needed all of that juice right away, but he provided it. And I think that was a really, really good sign of things to come. And if that can spread to the rest of the lineup through Snuggerud, that they're going to be set up really well for the rest of the year.
That seems to be something that you don't fully see too much from Snuggerud even last season, where it's if he's not contributing on the scoreboard, he's not fully contributing. And just to be able to do that away from the puck, and just last season against St. Thomas, he was the man. He got a hat. I believe he got a hat trick in the St. Paul game, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. And he got the winner. But it really seemed like St. Thomas remember that, hey, watch out for Snuggerud. Mm-hmm. He can hurt us. Let's make sure of that. And just, the way that he was able just to kind of play, and definitely, I'd agree with you there. I think he was kind of the heart and soul of the Gophers. And as Minnesota continued to pick up momentum as the game went on, it was not one of those ones. It wasn't like last Friday where they let St. Thomas back in the game like Minnesota Duluth was. They just kept the pedal down on the floor, and it seemed like Minnesota, you saw a better and better offense. You saw a better defense as the game went on, and a team that was certainly in control throughout Friday's game and for a good portion of Saturday's game as well.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I think especially defensively too, like we mentioned, Nathan Airy, 20 saves on 21 shots against. I think an overall good night from him. He was tested at times, but it wasn't a complete onslaught all night like he'll see against some of the Big Ten teams. Even hearing Wally and goalie aficionado Eric Shearhorn on the radio after the game. It was kind of funny that Wally was asking Bob, saying, "All right, is it still Souliere tomorrow?" And he says, "What?" And Bob asks, "What do you think?" But so kind of leading into Saturday's game, like he said earlier in the season, that they're going to flip one and one basically every weekend so far until we kind of find a clear cut. Liam Souliere playing in Saturday's game, the rematch across town at the X. Nate, it was a 6-2 final. It certainly the game was blown open by a trio of power play Brody Lamb goals, but it was just a very another consistent effort. I think it was a good way to see consistency. And I know kind of just in show prep, I know you wanted to jump into that topic just on how consistent Minnesota's been so far this season.
Yeah, on a weekend and just nearly a month that saw some kind of crazy results in college hockey where you're seeing some surprise results. You're seeing splits where one team dominates one night, one team wins the next. The Gophers they were consistent. They didn't let St. Thomas into the game. They controlled play both nights, and doing that 120 minutes in college hockey against any team is extremely difficult to do. Let alone a team that is in-state as a rival, is picked to finish very high in the league that they are. And for me, that is the biggest, I think, story for the big picture about where the Gophers are the first month of the season, where you're seeing the positive signs. We can point at a lot of smaller things, but it's the fact that for a team that you still have players who are growing into big roles, and we have questions that are looking to be answered. They're being answered fairly quickly, and they're being answered in a way that you're seeing the identity of Minnesota already emerge this quickly, even before we're entering conference play.
And that's not to mention even the success on the power play, like we touched on a little bit, Nate. It was just how, I guess, dynamic the power. I feel like dynamic is always overused, but it's it's a power play filled with movement and a lot of guys going to different places on the ice, keeping any opposing team, in this case St. Thomas, on their toes, and keeping them not really sure where the puck's going to be next, and making its next attempt at the net. So I really thought the power play looked really good. I know you did as well, but I think, seeing Sam Renzel in the steps he's taken, especially when the opportunities on the power play, it really just adds another guy who's got a lot of skill and a lot of offensive ability to be able to use his good hockey IQ to take chances where he can and where he thinks he should. But yeah, that's going to be another thing the Gophers are going to need to be consistent on, is having a power play that really keeps teams from really playing to, getting a little too towing the line to hitting those penalties. So as the season goes on, those teams are going to be aware of a lethal power play, and they're going to be very resistant to kind of reaching and grabbing and kind of letting the Gophers play, which they can do at 5-on-5 too. It's kind of having an established power play is going to give them less chances likely in the end, but it's going to let them thrive where they also thrive at 5-on-5.
Yeah, they certainly thrived. And you touched on Renzel up top. Snuggerud down low. Brody Lamb, 3 power play goals, and making a difference of a 5-minute major where you scored twice in there and just kind of flipped the game on that. I don't know how close it was at that point. It's still 2-1, so you can get back into it. You can score a shorthanded. And St. Thomas did score a shorthanded goal in the game, so much later. But for Minnesota, it was down 1-0. They get the 2. It takes a little bit, but they build up to scoring 2 quick goals, and then just are able to break things open. And if you are forcing mistakes, teams to make mistakes, and you're making them pay for the mistakes. I think for me, I want to say this is the second of the Brody Lamb goals, the one where it's right place, right time, gets the rebound, it's right there, plants it in there. And we've seen a lot of growth from Brody Lamb over the last 2 years, and just feels like one of those culminations of that. The skills are there. He gets placed in a situation that he's built towards, and he is making the most of the opportunity. I mean, a natural hat trick is tough. A regular hat trick is tough. A natural hat trick that all comes with the power play is just something to really be remarked about. And I mean, it's obviously, look, you're seeing, 4 goals in the week, and we're going to get that Tuesday press release with Brody Lamb being up there, that Big Ten start of the week.
Yeah, a lot of Gophers made their cases for it as well, Nate. I kind of talking about one last thing too. On Saturday, 10,000 at the Xcel Energy Center for what is this, North Star College? Oh wait,
No.
Sorry, I think former commissioner Nate Wells was trying to sneak that into our show prep here.
But having some fun on the notes.
Exactly. No, a rivalry that is still budding and will hopefully garner more and more eyeballs and fervor, I guess, in the years to come as this rivalry gets heated and as St. Thomas switches conferences, and finally when they can make the NCAA tournament. Should be a lot more fun in store for this rivalry of the Twin Cities college hockey scene going forward. But Nate, on the overall outlet of the series, just kind of the 2 games in a capsule. I know you talked about just kind of the cases made for Big Ten stars of the week or players of the week in general, but what are your takeaways from this past weekend's results, especially besides the consistency that we already kind of talked about?
Well, I thought Minnesota just really made their presence known, and you're showing off their depth. You're showing off the different ways to score. They are able to score. They're able to take advantage of the fact that, hey, they didn't even have the best opening 10 minutes both nights. They trailed 1-0 on both of them, and that almost seems like an afterthought when you look at how the games went. Where, all right, well, you can take your best punch, and we'll take it, and then make you pay for trying to even think of that you have the opportunity to go on here. And I really want to say is like St. Thomas. I think highly of Minnesota. We can probably make the argument that maybe after the first month they're closer to that top tier with the Denver, with the BC. If you want to throw Michigan State in there, I wouldn't have an argument on that one. They look like they're closer in there. We'll see a little bit more in the next few weeks as the competition, especially in conference play, takes a step. But 5-1 through that first for the first 6 games is certainly something to be happy with, and something with this weekend where it was fun. Honestly, I'm enjoying watching this team. I enjoyed watching. Honestly, I want watching them play St. Thomas. St. Thomas has certainly come a long way in the 3-4 years we've seen them with the D1 program. And I know it's funny because I did put the North Star College Cup as a joke kind of in our notes. But 10,000 was the point where it looks, I enjoyed 10,000 at the X in this one. And it felt like kind of like a St. Thomas kind of made the most of it, feeling like a home game. Gets you really excited to see what happens when they have their own arena that's on campus. But 10,000, we used to, for the North Star College Cup, people would be up in arms like, hey, it's only 10,000 there. That's not great or anything. We don't want this. And now I almost wonder, like, hey, if you bring back the North Star College Cup, I think you get more than 10,000. I think more, even if you have 10,000, we're still happy about it. There just time might heal a few more wounds there.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's fun. I don't think there's really I wouldn't say there's a rivalry. I mean, I'll throw it back to you if you feel like there's a rivalry with Minnesota and St. Thomas, but like, it feels right now it's fun. It's you have teams that are kind of nearby. There's a little bit more on the ice, but until maybe St. Thomas is a little bit more, it's a little one-sided on that end. But like I'm enjoying these games though.
Yeah, I think it's a great time, and I think it's definitely more manufactured off the ice. I think for the rivalry from places like this very podcast, probably. But I think for a rivalry to happen, there's got to be some moment in an impactful game, not necessarily a game on October 25th and 26th of the start of the season of a team that can't even make the NCAA tournament. 2 teams that aren't in the same conference. That makes it more difficult for those things to be established. But it does take some kind of extraordinary moments and games like the XL game last year. That's something, because like people kept talking about it, and it was one of the highlights kind of leading up to the non-conference schedule of the season to say, wow, wonder what St. Thomas is going to give the Gophers again this year. So I think it's not a rivalry yet. I think it will be over time, and just that kind of development that'll happen, and maybe some big games, hopefully down the line that they could. I mean, imagine if they could find a way to meet in the tournament sometime in the future, which would be a really interesting bar watch party scene around the Twin Cities. I think would be would be fun to see where the St. Thomas and University of Minnesota fans kind of come out and pack some of those places. But not really a rivalry yet in my book. Very entertaining games to watch. Obviously, all these guys probably played together in high school and juniors together, or against each other. So it's fun to see all the Minnesota connections play, especially just at the elevated college level. But yeah, and kind of just lastly on this weekend series as well. I know we talked about the Kurth Wood Clark line, but like I think I might have said it that like some of these guys could hit 30s on either goals or assists, and Connor Kurth, Matthew Wood, they're in top 5 scoring in the entire country, and we're gonna keep pumping those tires a little bit, but also have the asterisks until they start playing those top 5, top 10 teams and see what they do against them. But as long as they keep doing it, it's hard not to talk about it.
Yeah, it's that middle ground of waiting to see, because the best team that they've played so far this season was Omaha, and I mean Omaha struggled since that. Seeing how the shots were, seeing how possession was, and seeing how Minnesota's played since, it's like you can kind of make the a little bit more of a declaration. Maybe, hey, the Gophers got goalied, it happens. But at the same time, but the way Minnesota it's the way that we have to figure out is it the way Minnesota's playing is because of who they're playing, or is it because of who they are? And I mean that's going to be a question that facing off against Penn State this weekend will be a great opening test on that. The Nittany Lions are coming off of sweeping the Larrys of St. Lawrence, and look, St. Lawrence really just sounds like a MIAC team. Let's call them the Larrys. I know they're technically the Saints, but I always enjoy it. It's Randy Johnson of the Star Tribune and I will go back and forth on this one where it's I call them the Larrys.
Yeah,
but they pulled that off of Bagula. The one loss that Penn State has this season is the one up to Connecticut and lost to Quinnipiac, and I believe it was Detroit. They almost came back from a 3-0 deficit.
Yeah, it was 3-2 final. That was much closer. Yeah, it's a close final for sure.
Yeah, so this team, they bring back Aiden Fink. They bring back some of the key pieces from last year where things were starting to look a little bit better towards the end. And just you feel that Guy Godowski is always a tough team to play against. So it's a great team. It's a great program to start against for the season. And it's kind of nice to get the bookend with Penn State Big Ten play, where Minnesota opens against them at home and then they close out at Penn State to end the regular season.
Yeah, it'll be a fun time as Penn State comes to Mariucci this year to kind of see what the first first conference schedule game starts to look. Just because it can be so skewed, especially when the Gophers haven't played as many really bona fide top teams, and when you see the class of the Big Ten the last few years kind of being up there, and regardless of what teams it is, the competition level is really high. So it'll be interesting to see how they square off against a team like that this early in the season.
Yeah, and I mean, credit, because we spoke highly like the last few years of Minnesota's non-conference schedule just being extremely tough and kind of giving the test that the younger team needs to. And this isn't the same way where North Dakota played Mankato, they played BC, St. Cloud went out to Michigan. Michigan played Mankato as well. Michigan State and Boston College played one another. We had a lot of really good non-conference matchups early in the season. So they haven't had that one key top 10 test yet this season, but at the same time, I mean, for who they've played and thinking of higher of the teams that they've played against, I mean, Minnesota they've pulled away in almost every game that they've played in.
Yeah, it's a good sign so far, and obviously you can only do what you can against what the schedule gives you. So we'll see what the Gophers do as the schedule kind of rolls on and they start to face more. I mean, the more built-in matchups that they're going to have to face against the Michigan States, But I know a few weeks ago we might have said Wisconsin in that same breath. Nate, I don't know if we can do that anymore. Let's take a look around the conference here. I know there's a few good things that happened with the Big Ten for pro Big Ten fans out there. I don't know if that's a thing that anyone considers themselves, but Mankato or
I have
not
a mask.
Mankato.
I have a mask somewhere back there that's like that we got like one of the Big Ten tournaments. That's like the Jason Gully mask. That's B1G. So I think that's like this might be like the most Big Ten like hockey household that exists.
There you go. There you go. And good for Nate's conference here is that Michigan State swept Canisius on the road. Ohio State swept Bowling Green. Penn State, like we mentioned, swept the Larrys of St. Lawrence.
Yes.
But not good. First, Notre Dame lost at home to Long Island, a very young team that they should not be losing to. But even worse, Wisconsin swept by Denver.
It was not only like how they swept. The Friday night game was, I think even in losing, it was about the best that we've seen Wisconsin this season. Where Denver right now, they're a veteran team. They're coming off a championship. They are already pretty much at a higher level. It's kind of with the experience. So it kind of felt like, hey, they're getting tested by Wisconsin. That's kind of what I wanted to see. But Saturday was basically everything that we've seen that's kind of gone wrong with Wisconsin. And I'm entering the season, when we're kind of going through the Big Ten and we're talking about it, Drew, you and I were like, I don't know what to make of Wisconsin. There's so many questions, and you don't want to get too high. You don't want to get too low, especially this time of year where you bring in a lot of new pieces, and sometimes it takes some time to figure things out and put things together. And granted, the Badgers lost a lot of pieces. Mike Hastings is certainly getting his guys in. People left in the transfer portal, and everything that he's putting together. But through 6 games, it is not pretty in Madison. It's about as the opposite of last year, where everything was going right for the Badgers. Not much is. They're a comeback against Lindenwood away from being winless.
Yeah,
at this point.
They're 1-5 on this young season, and obviously, I think Denver ranked number 1. Wisconsin was ranked number 20. They will not be after this. But it does show. All right, is Denver just really that much better than everybody else? Probably. Is Wisconsin a lot worse than we thought? Probably. But also 1-5 for Wisconsin to start the year. They have a total of 5 even strength goals on the season. The Gophers, on the contrary, the Gophers, they have 27.
It is they cannot score. At a certain point, like you're like, oh, well, they're running to a hot goalie. Okay, if you're continuing to run against hot goalies against different teams, at a certain point, no, like that's not the case. But
might not be the goalie anymore.
They lose. They win and lose. They win an OT and they lose against Lindenwood. They get swept at home by Ohio State, who was picked to finish last in the league. It's less about, for me, what they're doing against Denver, and against Denver also, where just they kept giving up giving up goals after goals after goals from just poor playing against the Pioneers. It's less about that than it is just about the games that you expect them to be more competitive and play better. I mean, and I expect Wisconsin to be winning more low scoring games than they have been. Certainly there's time to move the change things around. There's times to put things together. We're talking about, we just finished the first month of a 5-month season, but at the same time, those are some wins. Those are some. It's tough to have those non-conference losses. Have to be swept at home by the team that's predicted to finish last in your conference, and you're already digging yourself a tough hole to get out of.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, and I'm really intrigued to see now what they do between now and their games with the first games with the Gophers. But I'm interested to see if the Gophers have that in them to do what they've been doing against these other teams, and send a lot of the Gopher fans home with some nice rivalry victory.
I am too. Another thing I'm really curious is Notre Dame, and Jeff Jackson's last season. They have a loss to Alaska. They have a loss to LIU, and I'll give credit to LIU. They beat Augustana. They beat Notre Dame. They're kind of in the tough places like the lone East Coast independent, but man, that team is really tough to play against. I went out there last year when they played Penn State, and they played out of the Islanders practice arena out in Nassau County. And it was a cool atmosphere. And like, they're a tough team to play against. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like those old, I feel like it's just defensive. Like it feels like, I mean, like it's like it feels like pretty much like you're looking at like an old like Atlantic hockey team, like one of those like kind of like an Air Force style, very defensive. They'll take on the shots. They'll make you pay on the counters. And when they're ahead, and when you're trailing against them, it's almost impossible to come back against. And that's pretty much Notre Dame is kind of in that similar
Notre Dame
style.
And
yeah, I'm just thinking through this. I'm just talking about Notre Dame. They kind of, it's a not as talented Notre Dame, I guess we can say that. And the LIU beat Notre Dame in its own game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting result and a weekend in a sport that has had so many crazy results, either kind of just really closely associated with the Gophers. Gophers haven't been on too many of those crazy results, but it's certainly happened a lot of them around them.
Yeah, this was a week where North Dakota put up a 5 spot right away against BU and dominated, only to get to lose the Saturday. And I mean, that's kind of where North Dakota is, in fairness to the Fighting Hawks, which, you know what, hey, this might be the first time we've said these words on a Gopher podcast, but they have been playing tougher. They played Mankato. They played Mankato. They played BU.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, if you split with some good teams, you split with good teams. But like that is not alone. I think Quinnipiac and New Hampshire had one of those. Maine's kind of been doing some interesting things out east. BC needed a big comeback against Western. So there's been some fun, honestly, it's been a really fun thing. Like even the Michigan State, going against Canisius out in Buffalo, there's certainly some close games. Look like kind of some of those old Canisius things we've seen where you're getting opportunities, but the goalie's not letting it in.
Yep. It's a tale as old as at least a few years ago, but
yeah, it does not come easy in college hockey. It's honestly, and like when it does, and when you're able to have two, I mean, like honestly, like this is the one thing to take away from this week and last week for Minnesota. If you were able to have two great games in a weekend where you pretty much spend the entire series ahead or just in control, and there's very little time that you're behind or things are not going right, enjoy it while it happens, because you know that is the exception rather than the rule. In college hockey, at least one of the two nights you see a team that might have an off night or might have an off period, and it's how you respond to those that makes the difference for a high-end team versus a great team versus a good team versus a team that is struggling to make the NCAA tournament. That is the biggest difference. And right now for Minnesota, it's 2 weeks in a row where they are controlling the play and they are controlling to make sure everything is going right.
And you know what, they're going to be looking to do that a third straight week, be consistent, stay off the other verticals podcasts of, wow, look at what went wrong across the game for some of the blue bloods. The Gophers are going to try to stay off of that list yet again this next week against Penn State with 2 games at Mariucci Arena. Nate, one final thought from you. Like we talked about, you've got plenty of Penn State stories. What's your favorite Penn State story? What's your favorite story about the team that killed college hockey?
Well, I mean, I enjoy watching Penn State. I mean, look, if I've got taken away anything from college hockey, it's led me to meet my wife. So, and that's come from going out to State College. So I will always be happy from that end. My 2 favorite Penn State ones on this end, for just in general, are my 2 favorite that are the non, like, meeting my wife, because obviously that's number one, and like look, on that. I'm like, I got married. It's great.
Yeah.
Woo. So number one would be out in Detroit for the 2017 Big Ten tournament. I'm covering it for the Star Tribune, and also that same game I went out. I met my wife. First thing I covered for the Star Tribune. I have a nice little poster thing of it up in my up in our hallway. It's great. I can always tell you that of how Minnesota won 2-1 on Friday night at State College. Adam Wilcox played fantastic. Justin Clues, Christian Isaacson got those goals. It's good.
Boy. There you go.
Yeah, pass it every day. I'm always like, man, I wish I wrote that better, but that's just look. Drew, you write. You write enough stuff too. You know how it is. You're never happy with how it is. But for 2017, I was covering it, and I was covering it for the Strip, and I was writing on deadline, and it was thinking of Eric Shearhorn. He's played out of his mind. Minnesota goes into double overtime and eventually loses. And I have gone way past I'm essentially at this point, I'm writing for the internet because it's gone past the deadline for print. It's been on that long enough, and I'm trying to get everything going. I'm trying to get everything going on and everything to make sure I have it. And I have it just in time to basically find out that I got locked into the Joe Louis Arena and had to figure out how to get out of it. And so Minnesota's done, but they are still playing. We still have to figure out for the Gophers what seed they're going to be. There's one more night, and the Big Ten championship game is always the last game to finish. And for this, it got to the point where it was Penn State versus Wisconsin, and this is Tony Granato's first year. If Wisconsin won, Minnesota was a 2 seed. If Penn State wins, they get into the tournament, they knock out Wisconsin, and Minnesota is the final 1 seed. And so I had to write 3 different versions of the same story as up for one for the Star Tribune. And then on top of, I think I actually wrote like a sidebar of like on I think it was about Jack Ramsey because his dad played for the Red Wings. So talking about that, but like I was writing all these versions out, and I wrote the 2. It was like, this is what happens for this one. This is what happens for this one. And then the game went to overtime again. And I'm like, oh crap. Now we have to figure out how this is going. I need to keep going to hit send. I'm basically waiting on this is going on. This game is great. Everyone's happy. Penn State people are getting really excited because, hey, look, if you win, they win. They're going to send the NCAA tournament for the first time. And it's me and Todd Molesky, who's the Wisconsin beat writer, are just waiting around and be like, okay, we need this game to figure it out. Our deadlines are going on there. I have to start writing the third version of the story that is essentially this is not this game was not decided as the Star Tribune went to press, and this is what's going on. This is what's going on. Take things out. It wasn't that hard or anything, but it's still just like, okay, now I have to write a third one. And then they keep going. The game keeps going. It goes past the deadline. Everyone's excited. I'm just like, come on. I don't need. I'm like, I just want to know how the Gophers do. I want to put the story on there. You're ruining my deadline, Penn State. You're in college hockey, and now you're ruining my deadline. So even as like Liam Folks goes and scores the goal that for the first time he ends Wisconsin season and sends Penn State to the NCAA tournament, I'm just like, okay, thank you. I can finally put my story in. Minnesota's the 1 seed. We all know what happened. They lost to Notre Dame the next week. So, but that happened there, and then. So that's number one. So I always enjoy that because I have that that funny memory of just like, you're in I'm like, you're in college hockey, you're in my deadline. The next time I'm just realizing I have a few more, but I'll save them for the next time they play.
All right.
Penn State. But the next one is, which I always enjoy because it was one of the craziest stretches of play that I can remember covering out at a state college. I think it had to be 20. I think this was the next season where essentially, it was the next season. Minnesota and Penn State are tied late in the third on a Saturday. Minnesota's looking for the sweep. Penn State gets a penalty shot with like about 2.5 minutes left. quiet, quiet, quiet. Goes and scores. Dennis Smirnoff. Crowd erupts. I've never heard Penn that loud. I think I talked to like people after the game. That was the loudest like that they'd ever heard Pagula.
Mm-hmm.
It goes crazy nuts. People are like high fiving, going nuts, and it looks like okay. Well, that's just a great story. This is how the game's going to go. I'm starting to write my running gamer.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota goes and ties it with like 3 seconds left. They get off a face-off. Taylor Camerata goes and scores. Okay, delete. Go to overtime. And then Rhett Pillick and Justin Cluse go and score an OT winner. Okay, keep going. And this is a span of like, I think from like start to stop, like real time. Like I figured out it later. It was like 10 or 12 minutes. And and it was literally, it went from like the loudest I'd ever heard the building to you could hear a pin drop as everyone left after Minnesota won. Like you could just hear like the Gophers on the ice that excited.
Wow.
So it was just one of those things of just the highest highs, the lowest lows. And then right after I'm excited. I wrote this. I crushed this. I go down. I meet my wife later and like some of her and friends after the game. I'm excited because I wrote this great story. I had this lead. I talked to people. I got done a deadline, even though like I had to get rid of like 4 things. And they're all angry. They're like, this game sucks. I'm just like, yeah. Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. You get to enjoy. I'm like, that's that side. For me, I'm just I like the writing part of there. So it was a great game. It was a great story. But I always have those fun memories. Penn State. They kind of embrace their I wouldn't say their role, but they embrace kind of like their stature in college hockey, where they're a big school. It's part of a bigger program. Like it's part of like a big time athletics program. But it's new. They kind of try to do things in a new school way. It feels pro, but it also feels kind of college. It's the big thing on campus in the winter. And I mean, it's an interesting town. If anyone has never gone out to State College to see a game there, I do highly recommend it.
Yeah. And that's going to kind of solidify probably my first Penn State stories. I'm likely going to be going out to the games at the end of the year. My brother just started grad school at Penn State, so we'll be there for a good 5 years, and we'll hopefully be able to visit him multiple times out there. But should be an interesting time way down the line, but it should be a very interesting time this coming weekend. Nate, I think that does it for the two of us here this week. But to everyone listening and or watching, thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe and to check out all of our wonderful brewery sponsors. Bent Paddle, I know we hit them up a lot in the Duluth series, but be sure to stay tuned for the rest of the MNCAA verticals as well from all the conferences and all the teams around the state of Minnesota. But until next week, Nate, we will see you at the rink.